Hey, welcome back to the Bums and the Bleachers podcast. The boys are back, baby. We're ready to go. Baseball's right around the corner. We've got pitchers and catchers already reporting. We've got Alex Bregman already there early, probably, studying the AA players and single A players so he can offer his synopsis to Jed. But yeah, we're back, man. How you doing? How you feeling?
I'm doing pretty well. It's been nice here, today having like a nice day of like fake spring here in Chicago.
Yeah, right.
Hopefully this kind of continues, but a lot warmer in Arizona right now. Baseball's in the air and, looking forward to, even if, it's not exactly the type of stuff we're going to be seeing this regular season, looking forward to seeing actual games being played that, we can watch very soon.
I know I'm super pumped, man. I mean, it is this weather's, obviously it feels like a little bit of a tease. I know we're probably going to get another round of, cold front coming through but it's a nice break, man. We had about 21, 22 straight days of sub freezing temps in the Chicagoland area. So,
Oh God. Yeah.
it's pretty nice to get a little bit of relief right now. And yeah, baseball's back. So, we talked about it, our title here, October Dreams start in February. So let's start off with this. We know that this year is the 10th year, the 10-year anniversary of our 2016 Boys in Blue winning their first World Series since 1908. That was a 108-year drought. And that game obviously was crazy. Game 7, 10th inning, a whole bunch of drama going on in that game and that whole series. That entire year they were the best team in baseball, and I think it was different because we knew going into that year that they were projected to be the best team in baseball. So yeah, I don't know, how do you want to go with this? You want to talk about maybe memories of 2016 and how it felt at the beginning of the year, maybe in contrast to how this year is kind of slated to start?
I mean, it's pretty damn similar when you consider like going into 2016, coming off the high of what 2015 was, and had big moves then, going out and getting John Lackey and getting Jason Hayward, and you go get Ben Zobrist too, who winds up being the World Series MVP, and similarly this year you get Edward Cabrera adding to this rotation. You have the addition of Alex Bregman and everything. So, I'm look. I mean that 2016 team. It did have one big hole in the lineup with Jason Hayward, but it feels very similar in that this offense feels really good. The pitching feels solid. That you got a bunch of guys that are going to take the ball every fifth day. Maybe don't have 3 Cy Young contenders like that team did, but this feels very, it feels like a year where the Cubs are going to take, a big step forward from where they were in previous years. That, the division was something we probably were striving for last year, and then the Cubs hit a snag and the Brewers wouldn't lose. And now, the Brewers have kind of planned for the years ahead, more so coming off of a year where they're the best team in baseball. And the Cubs have, made moves that feel like they're going to improve, and hopefully that shakes out. And, there are certain publications that do feel like that'll be the case.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it feels good going into this year, coming off of last year. The only thing I would say is I don't know if I necessarily get the push all your chips in kind of feeling that I got in 2016, where I think, like, to your point, they came off a really big high in 2015. They were riding the roller coaster of that 97 win, season that was basically magical in the second half of the year, where they fought hard. They got back into contention with the Pirates and the Cardinals, who respectively won, I want to say, what was it, 101 and 99 games, or was it 199 games or something like that a piece?
Yeah. Cardinals won 100 games, Pirates won 98, Cubs won 97.
Right.
Crazy.
So,
the 3 best teams in baseball were all in the same division.
Right. And the Cubs beat both of them in that playoff one too, which was really cool. But yeah, so I mean, like, that obviously we saw they had a lot of young talent that was starting to come up in 2015. They started calling up, Chris Bryant obviously made his debut, won Rookie of the Year that year. You started seeing, Javi Baez start to play a little bit more. You started to see Addison Russell. I think he might have played in 2016, if I'm not mistaken. But
yeah, he was there in 16.
I think Kyle Schwarber was a young, player coming into his own and, hitting bombs in the playoffs. And then, 2016 felt like, okay, let's push our chips in. We've got John Lester now. We added the big arm to the rotation. Let's go get, John Lackey. Let's go get Jason Hayward. Let's bring back Dexter Fowler. We fortified our bullpen, mid-season with the Roldis Chapman. And to be honest, they had a pretty damn good bullpen by the mid-year point when they traded for him, because Hector Rodon was a pretty decent closer in 2015 leading into 2016. So this year, I don't know if I necessarily feel the same way where this is push your chips in, because I do like the Bregman signing. It was nice to see him spend a little bit of money, but it's also a addition / subtraction. And I don't know if you're getting back everything that you wanted to lose from Kyle Tucker, because I mean, he obviously played through injuries, and you could say whatever you want about Kyle Tucker. He didn't probably play up to be like one of the 10 best in baseball, but he was hurt, right? And I think like you would have hoped that they would have re-signed him, brought him back, maybe seen, a 6-7 WAR season, campaign from him. Yeah, right. 6. I hate you.
I had to. Sorry.
Did you? You know what I mean? So it's like they probably could have brought him back. I don't know if you're getting the same offensive production from Alex Bregman that you're going to get from Kyle Tucker. I do think you're going to get a better defensive production from Bregman, and that infield is now probably the best defensive infield in all of baseball, with Gold Gloves pretty much around the diamond at this point.
Right.
So, and maybe there's some moves that they'll make at the midway point. I do like that they build depth with the rotation. I mean, you've got 7 or 8 guys that can go out and pitch for you. And I don't know how you're feeling. I think, and I know it's later in the show, we'll talk about it, but I'm thinking 6-man rotation this year. It's got to be. I mean, I don't understand like why you bring so many starters, into it, especially with Justin Steele coming back, and you don't have to rush him.
That's a good point with Steele. We'll get to this in a little bit there, HBIC. Thanks for joining. So yeah, I mean, that's not even something I really considered yet, but a 6-man rotation is like very much on the table when Justin Steele comes back. And you two got, like I said, you probably don't have as strong of a rotation as you did in 2016 that you do on this team.
No,
you have guys though that
I think it's deeper.
It's deep. Yeah, it could be deeper. The thing is, like, you have guys though that, how do I put this, could probably benefit a lot from having like their days off between starts kind of spaced out a little bit more. If you think about Matthew Boyd with, the innings load that he had last season, you think about Shota Imanaga being back, and I don't know what kind of, if he's exactly in the same rhythm of a normal, major league pitcher that has pitched his whole life here yet. But I know when he was in Japan, the routine for him was that he only pitched like once per week. So, maybe getting him back to that kind of throwing routine, could get him back to what he was in 2024 or what he was in Japan previously. So I haven't even really given that much thought. I thought that, someone would get bumped down to the bullpen, but now that you mention it, that might be the best recipe for success for pitching when it comes to the 2026 Cubs.
Yeah. And obviously, it's on our docket. We'll talk about it a little bit more at length. I think, this is a great point too. You got Jackson Wiggins, who could be a bullpen asset, or starter depth. Yeah, agreed. But yeah, just getting back to it, I don't know, like I said, if I necessarily get the 2016 vibes, but I do think that they have built a contender. I think they've built a really strong pitching staff. I think they've built a really strong defensive team. Mm-hmm. I still have question marks with the offense. And I think they are hoping for a lot of what ifs to happen. I think they're hoping that, PCA takes the next, even, another step, and creates more consistency, strikes out less, maybe gets on base more. I think you're banking on Dansby Swanson to maybe be a little bit more consistent at the plate. I think you're banking on Bregman to stay healthy for 162, and maybe they're not, and that's why they kept Shaw. I think they're banking on, say, a Suzuki to continue the offensive production that he has over the last, year and a half, I'll say, because I think it was the back half of 2024 and then 2025. He had a really good year, but then he struggled in the second half of that year. I think
did light it up in the playoffs, though.
He did, but I think you don't know. Again, Ian Happ. I think Ian Happ is a guy that I honestly feel bad for Ian Happ, because I think they continuously bat him so high that it's not his fault, and he is the player that he is. If he is a number 6 or 7 hitter on a championship contender team, that's a pretty damn good lineup. The problem is they keep moving him up higher than I think he needs to be. But who am I to say? I'm not making $8 million a year after coming from Milwaukee.
Look, I'm someone who's long been a critic of Ian Happ, and he's one of the players that I feel the most underwhelmed by on this Cubs team on a routine basis. And you make a good point. Like, every year, it seems like he's, hitting pretty high in the lineup, and he'll always have a stretch, maybe a 2-month stretch every year where he's probably the worst hitter on the team. This lineup does feel deeper to the point where, I think they're going to start with him hitting high. I think he'll probably wind up being the leadoff man to start the year, much like he was, early in the year before he went on the injured list, and then before he started really struggling when he came back. But I think the lineup is strong enough where, you saw Michael Busch be hit pretty well at leadoff last year. You saw, Nico Horner hit high pretty well. You saw, say, Suzuki hit high pretty well. Where if you have to hit Ian Happ lower, that could be done. That could be done, and hopefully the rest of the lineup could pick that up if he's not hitting to the caliber of what a top of the order hitter would be.
Yeah. So let's jump into the next thing. We want to celebrate the 10 years of Cubs lore and the championship, but I think what's really exciting, obviously we want to talk about this year, right? And the Pagoda projections had just come out, and I don't know about you, but I was a little shocked to see what they look like, and they were basically ranked the 3rd best team in the National League. In terms of win total, they had the Dodgers obviously at number 1 with, what was it, 150?
I thought it was 2nd best in the National League.
I think the Braves might have been 2nd, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, well,
let me go back and check, but I want to say from what I saw, it was the Dodgers. Obviously, I think were projected to win 157 games or something like that. With their crazy lineup.
Yeah,
right. I think it was like 107 maybe. It was really high though. And I want to say the Braves were next. Let me check it out real quick. But sure. What are your thoughts on this? How you feeling about this?
I'll say this, it feels good that not only are they the favorite, but the favorite by a wide margin, what they project them to be. After what, 3 straight years of the Brewers being a total pain in the ass, and they very well could be again this year too, because it's just what they do after they trade away a good player. They didn't miss a beat after trading away Corbin Burns. They didn't miss a beat after trading away Josh Hader. Now they traded Freddie Peralta. Now they traded Caleb Durbin. They did get pretty good players. It's just they feel like trades that could work for them. And if the Cubs were to make them, it's one of those where you kind of bank on success in the years after and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
I would hope that finally one of these trades that the Brewers make where they're selling off, a player after a great season kind of doesn't pan out immediately for them like it has in years past. If it pans out for them in sometime in the future, whatever, fine. That's what it's supposed to do. But it shouldn't be where like you trade away Corbin Burns to the Orioles and you immediately get an all-star caliber season out of Joey Ortiz right then and there. Or DL Hall becomes like a lockdown reliever for them like he did. So, one of these moves for them where they just cut bait with one of their best players from the previous seasons, it has to backfire on them at some point, right?
You would think, but I mean, they, for whatever reason, they keep finding ways to win, and I think they're listen, we can hate on the Brewers all we want. I think the rivalry has gotten so much better over the last few years. And I think especially with Craig Counsell leaving them, coming to Chicago, it's only intensified it. And they obviously played the role of the stepbrother that gets, ridiculed pretty well. They're really good at it, and they hate us, and that's fine. They should. Right. But man, they've got a good organization, man. They find ways to win. They find ways to build, good good rosters that find ways to hit late in the season. They make trades like Andrew Vaughn that, obviously he looked like a dumpster fire in Chicago for the White Sox, goes over to Milwaukee, right up, 90-94, and then just hits the stitches out of the ball, So I'm going to reserve my thoughts on them just because they proved it. For whatever reason, they just have great scouting department. They have a great general manager. They have a great, great coach. They have a great manager who gets the most out of his players. And you know what? They do the best out of most teams is they find great pitching and they find great pitching.
That's a good point. Yeah. I hate to admit it, but they do. Man.
Yeah.
It just the thing that so they project the Cubs to be the only team with a winning record in the NL Central, which that's a little surprising to me. I would have thought Brewers might still float around there. I mean, I guess 80 wins isn't going to be too far off from that. The Reds feel kind of low for me coming off of them being a playoff team the previous year. And, that's with Ellie De La Cruz having a down year. If he improves at all next season, that'll be good for them. Hunter Green missed significant time for them. They are adding another really good caliber pitching prospect to their roster next year in Chase Burns. So I feel like they're a little too low on the Reds. The Pirates, I do kind of see it a little bit because they did make some nice moves this offseason with adding some hitters, and they still have Skeens, still have Jared Jones, still have Mitch Keller, still have Bubba Chandler. So, but the Cubs 90 and 72, that feels about right for them. I would like to think that maybe they do a little bit better, but you can also improve in just in the sense of being better than the rest of your division as Pacoda has them projected here.
Yeah. And so I stand corrected. They're still third behind Atlanta. Atlanta was not 94. It was 90.6 wins. So maybe a little bit more than half a win more projected from them over the Cubs. So very slight. They do play in a better division, so
that's the crazy thing. It feels like if there's any sort of negligibility between where the Cubs are at and where the Braves are at, wouldn't you think to put the team in the weaker division a little bit better than them? Because the Atlanta is in the same division with the Mets, the Phillies. I mean, don't sleep on the Marlins either, because they were only a few games under 500, and now they have a pretty good outfielder in Owen Casey, thanks to the trade we made with them. So, I don't know. I feel like the Cubs, if everything breaks right, they should be the second best team in the National League behind the Dodgers.
You know me, man. I'm not the most optimistic Cubs fan out there, right? But I agree. I think they probably should be the second best team, and I think a lot of it is more slated on their division than anything, because I think their division will be okay. I don't think it's going to be the worst division in baseball. I don't think it's going to be the worst division in I mean, it may be the worst division in National League, if we're being honest, because I think you've got the NL East, obviously, that has the powerhouses of Atlanta. The Mets obviously added some pieces.
I could see the NL West not being all that great this year. When you think about like how big of a step back the Padres have taken, and like,
yep.
Diamondbacks are still going to be without Corbin Burns. So, I mean, we'll see, but
yeah, I mean, maybe you're right. Maybe the NL West, I mean, maybe the Dodgers just beat, the living hell out of all those teams, just get super fat on that division. But
we know they'll have about like 11 or 12 easy wins when they play Colorado. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so you mentioned it. You said, if things break right for the Cubs, that is how we should finish, obviously, second in the National League. One of those things that I think needs to go right is Matt Shaw playing in right field, producing at a level, and maybe not just necessarily right field in general, but like a super utility role where he's playing good baseball around the diamond. I think he could potentially be, and I don't want to get ahead of myself, so pause when I say this. He could be this team's Ben Zobrist, and I'm not saying he's going to be as good as Ben Zobrist.
Okay.
But I think like the defensive capability to give you strong fielding in the outfield, strong fielding in the infield. You could give, Nico Horner a day off. You can give, by default, you could give, Swanson a day off because you can move Nico to short, have him play second. You give Bregman some days off. You keep Seiya maybe a little bit more healthy, keeping him out of the outfield.
True.
I think like this is, Matt Shaw's got to play well this year because they had every opportunity, I think, to trade him. We know Boston wanted him.
Yeah.
There are probably a couple other teams that probably would have taken him had we offered up.
Right. What, Washington when they still had Mackenzie Gore at the time?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, right. So what are your thoughts on Shaw playing right field? Are you feeling good about this? Do you think he's going to play more infield than outfield? Do you think he'll play just all around, just split up, amongst the positions?
What you said about him being like the new Ben Zobrist kind of fits for me. That I guess the thing I just wonder about, I mean, it's weird how like in back-to-back years, the Cubs have promoted players in which you weren't all that sure about how their gloves would play in the field, and they wound up being like really good fielders. First, you had Michael Busch in 2024, who, we know what we get from him at the plate, but we were kind of worried about him becoming a fielder at first base when, he was in the Dodger system and kind of like split between first and third, but was always blocked by Freddie Freeman and Max Muncy. And then you have Shaw, who like you kind of struggled defensively and didn't really have a defined position in the minors. I believe he was actually drafted as a shortstop. Played some second in the minors, played some third in the minors. But, I mean, he's come to really embrace it. I think he'll probably play all over. One thing I could see them doing is, we'll get into this a little bit more as we talk, like, roster battles for, who makes some of the final spots on the team. But, Shaw, right-handed bat, hits lefties pretty well. The side of the plate that Ian Happ struggles with as a switch hitter is hitting righties against lefties. Maybe see, and Happ, is a guy that typically plays every day. He's getting a little older. Maybe you see some playing time taken away from him just to, kind of negate his struggles at the plate when there's a tough lefty on the mound or something like that. So, the options are unlimited there. I know, what we know about Matt Shaw off the field. He does prefer to be on the right. So,
here's a name that I don't think we ever thought we'd bring up on this podcast, but how about Jonathan Moda, the Cubs infielding coach? I think you nailed it. I think it was such a great point that you brought up too. Like, yeah, we didn't know where Michael Busch was going to play. We thought, second baseman, I think, is when he was traded over as a second baseman. Then we're like, can he play third? Then they move him over to first. And honestly, Michael Busch, had it not been for the three guys that were up for contention for Gold Glove, and maybe had, Michael Busch played some more games and not being kept out of the lineup against lefties, he could have been up there for a Gold Glove finalist. I mean, he had some really great defensive metrics last year, and he played a really solid first base. So And then Nico making that switch from, short to second. He still remained a Gold Glove caliber player. He won a Gold Glove at second after being someone we thought could be a Gold Glove shortstop. And then, Matt Shaw was projected to be a shortstop or second baseman. They move him to third. He was a little rough out of the gate, and then he settled in, and he became a stalwart out there. I mean, he was really solid, really good. There, and didn't he get Gold Glove contention votes too? Gold Glove voting. Right?
He was a finalist.
He was a finalist, right? Yeah.
Yep. It was. I think it was him, Brian Hayes, and Matt Chapman. I want to say. Hold on. What is Sean saying? Praz is dreaming up ways to get Hap out of the lineup again. Jed won't allow that. Well, yeah.
Well, it's not just Praz. I love Ian Happ as a dude. Funny guy, great guy. I think the more and more, like I said, the more and more I think about Ian Happ, the more and more I kind of feel bad for him, because I do think, if you put him in, let's say you put him in the Dodgers lineup, that dude is a stud, he's gonna, I think he'd shine in a lineup like that, where you've got some offensive, just great offensive hitters, and you can bury him a little bit further, and he could just do what he does. He just gets on base really well, and he draws walks, and he could steal a few bags here and there, but he's not going to be a high average hitter. He's going to be incredibly streaky when it comes to power. But I think we have a love-hate with Ian, but I think here's the other thing too I want to talk about anyways, just getting back to what we were talking about. Craig Counsell said at spring training already that he expects Seiya to play a lot in right in 2026. So I wonder if this means that Matt Shaw is going to be more of that utility player, that Swiss Army knife. But it also scares me with Seiya because, small sample size. Last year, his defensive metrics did get better. He did play a better right field when he did play in the outfield when Tucker was down. And again, small sample size.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more concerned with the oblique stuff. I mean, this guy, pulls his oblique like clockwork every year. And last year was the first year I don't think he had that injury. So I don't know, man. It makes me nervous having him in the outfield just in terms of his health. And you don't have a lot of outfield depth anymore because you traded Owen Casey. And maybe you're hoping that Alcantara comes back up and
there's
he takes. I don't know.
When we get into the roster battles, there is one player I'm intrigued by for possible right field. But Seiya, I'll give him this. Late in the year last year when Tucker was either on the IL or limited and Seiya was basically the everyday right fielder at that point, he didn't look out of place. It was nothing really all that special, but he's a guy with a good arm. He will, I think I could maybe count to there was one bad drop that he had, which had been a thing for him in the last 2 years beforehand. There was one bad drop he had when I think the Royals were in town, right around the All-Star break. Outside of that, he was fine. You maybe don't exactly trust that for a full season, but you also want his bat in the lineup every day, especially with ABS coming into play, because I don't think any player is going to benefit more from having ABS than him. But also too, I think if you looked at batting splits, if you look at what he did strictly as a DH and then as a right fielder, he actually hit better as a right fielder than he did as a DH. I think regardless of how good of a fielder he is, I think he's someone who does prefer to just be out there and be active and not have to, not be sitting for 95% of the game outside of the plate appearances he's taking when he's a DH. Hopefully things shake out right for him. The thing is, this will never happen. This will absolutely never happen, but I've been screaming this for a couple of years now, that you have a Gold Glove outfielder in left field, Ian Happ, and you have a guy that struggles in right field in Seiya Suzuki. And left field is the least valuable position on the field. Why not, try switching him a little bit. Move the better outfielder to the more valuable position. Move the worse outfielder to the position where if he screws up, it kills you a little bit less. Maybe that might be the case going forward next year when, I mean, Seiya's in a contract year, so who knows if he'll be back.
Yeah.
Happ is also in a contract year, and I feel like it's a little more inevitable he won't be back. And maybe when that happens, if they find a way to extend Seiya, that he becomes the everyday left fielder going forward. And, as we have right now, maybe, Matt Shaw, you see some things from him that you like. Maybe he becomes your everyday right fielder then.
Or Alcantara, because I think the hope
Or
is
Alcantara.
that he takes the next step, right? I mean, he's a young guy. He's 21, going to be 22, if I'm not mistaken. So he potentially could be that, and I think we saw it last year. I think if you recall during spring training and training camp, Sammy Sosa came out and said that, he thought the guy could be electric, like he reminded him of, a young Sammy, and I think like the way that, the ball off the bat, hopefully it's not a corked bat and he doesn't follow through, with that, but I think like Sammy had really complimentary things to say about him and just the energy that he brought day in, day out, and also just the electricity that comes off the bat, and I think that's, again, I think it's something that we could always, point to and sometimes get overly excited about because, we talk in these superlatives about, oh my God, the way the ball leaves his bat, and like nobody other. And I think you even called it out during the offseason where, people were dogging Owen Casey. And then as soon as he got traded, I think was it Harold Reynolds was talking about how the dude had like a swing of Kyle Tucker,
Yeah, right.
They're bashing him as a prospect, but as soon as he gets traded,
exactly, yeah.
So I think we could get caught up
in the time he was in the minors, but
totally. So we all get easily caught up in that, man, the way the ball leaves is bad. But I do hope that, I think as he's gone through the farm system, you have consistently heard that there's some kind of electricity around him. So maybe he takes that next step, and that's your right fielder or left fielder for the future.
For sure. I guess the one thing I'll add to this too is if you remember last year, I mean, this was a little bit of a concern for me when we did some of our early shows last year, but a little roster observation I made early when they broke camp was they only had 4 outfielders on the active roster, and one of them was Seiya too, who was the everyday DH at the time,
right.
Which basically meant you hope none of them get hurt in a game because then you're going to have to put someone you don't really want playing outfield until you can get someone else up at that point.
Totally.
So, I mean, it'll probably be a pretty valuable spot for, the 4th outfielder, and, Shaw could be that, Alcantara could be that, or it could maybe be someone I have in mind that we'll get to shortly.
Okay. Well, before we do that, let's get back to this rotational depth. I think this is obviously going to be the strength of the ball club this year. I mean, you've already got Jamison Taillon, Shota Imanaga, Cabrera. You've got Matthew Boyd coming back. You've got Cade Horton, Javier Assad. Man, I'm drawing a blank right now. Colin Rea,
yeah. They have options aplenty for sure.
And that's all before you get back Justin Steele. So they do have a lot of depth. They've got a lot of starters. And I think when I was talking about earlier that my thought process was it made total sense to go towards a 6-man rotation because I think you saw it with the Dodgers, and now the Dodgers obviously do it better than most teams because they could go 6, 7, 8. But you saw what happened in the playoffs. You had Yamamoto shove late into games, deep into games,
in relief too for a couple games.
Games. Right. You know what I mean? And so they saved him all year for the playoffs because they had that depth, and they knew. Right. And again, maybe their lineup obviously allows them to do things like that, because they obviously can outslug teams, 10-1, 10-2, and they don't have to have the, starting pitcher go 5-6 innings. They can, throw a hodgepodge, rotation out there early in the year. But, and also to your point, yeah, the division's maybe a little bit weaker, so maybe they're not as worried. But I do think with the Cubs' depth, they won't do the same, but maybe could do something similar and really save their guys for the postseason. Because we saw what happened in the postseason last year. Matt Boyd broke down, he got tired.
Yeah.
And they, that was the most innings he's pitched since, what was it, 2021.
And they had to go to rest too. Because like he pitched game 1 of the Padres series, then had to pitch game 1 of the Brewers series on just 3 days rest. So
well, he also didn't have to pitch it, but they didn't have any other options,
that's
so
a good point. Yeah.
This is part 1 and part 2 of that conversation, right? They didn't have enough options that they had to go back to Matthew Boyd, and he pitched so much towards the end of the year because they were fighting for the division and fighting for that final playoff spot and that wild card that he just lost steam, and I think this year you have a guy, Cabrera, who hasn't really eclipsed 100 innings except for once in his career. You have Matthew Boyd, who's coming off a year where he's pitched the most innings he's ever pitched in his career. You've got Justin Steele coming off Tommy John surgery. You got Shota Imanaga, who obviously had a huge regression year compared to the first 2 years. You've got Jameson Taillon, who's probably going to be your most consistent workhorse in that rotation and probably pitch what he normally does. But I think they're really set up nicely to go 6-man rotation and save your guns for the playoffs. And I don't think they have an ace, like a true ace on that staff, unless Cabrera really, I think he sharpens up because he started looking like the metrics look great, but he also can't stay healthy.
Well, hey, if you get the same Cade Horton you got in the second half last year, I mean, from what I've heard, he's averaging about 96 on the fastball, topping out about 98. So
could be, yeah. But no proven. Let me rephrase that then.
Okay. No proven. That's fair.
No proven number 1 guy. And maybe you could say Justin Steele, but again, coming off Tommy John surgery, I don't know. We don't know what we're going to get from Justin Steele. So maybe they don't have the flame throwing top 1, 2, 3 guys that the Dodgers or like Toronto or those other contenders have, but they've got a lot of nice pitching. So I don't know how that's going to play in the playoffs, but if you could go 6-man, keep them healthy, keep them rested. I don't know. I think they look pretty good.
It's not a bad way to go. And, the way that I always kind of envisioned it before you brought it up now is like, I would have thought that, so you start the year with, the 5 that'll be active with Boyd, Cabrera, Horton, Taillon, Imanaga. Steele comes back. That around that point, I'm thinking like the guy you're most concerned about with an innings load is probably Matthew Boyd. Maybe you convert him into like what the Drew Pomeranz role was last year, where he maybe likes open some games. Maybe you make him into a lefty reliever. But I mean, it could work too with the way you're saying that, if you space out his off days like he would greatly benefit from that. Shota would greatly benefit from that. I think Cade Horton would greatly benefit from that when you consider like he pitched probably more than he ever had as a pro last year. And, a lot of that at the major league level too. So, yeah, I mean, they're in a good place depth wise, and there are guys behind him when you got Ray Assad, maybe you'd throw Ben Brown a start here. Maybe you throw Jordan Wicks a start there. Maybe you throw at some point you're going to get Jackson Wiggins up this year, I would think. They're probably going to be pretty aggressive with Jackson Wiggins and getting him up this year, I would think, with, being uncertain about the future of 2027 and if there's going to be a season. So, there's good options that you have here. It would feel a lot better if you had that like guy that, maybe it's not going to be a Cy Young contender, but like is going to be like the stopper, that like even when like John Lester or like even when Jake Arrieta outside of his Cy Young season or John Lester outside of 2016, like they were those guys. I mean, that feels like it would be Cade Horton, but also, you know, guys who have hot rookie seasons sometimes do have sophomore slumps. So we'll see how it all plays out.
So let me ask you this before we move on. One of the guys that I think was talked about a lot, you know, and I think it was initially reported by Boob Nightingale that he signed with the Cubs, then was retracted. Ended up signing a 1-year deal with the Diamondbacks to go back and play 1 more year. Did you want to see Zach Gallen in a Cubs uniform, considering the depth that they had? And, you know, this is a guy that obviously before last year had some Cy Young candidate years.
He's a guy that I would say, I mean, I feel about him kind of, I would say this, the success that like Matthew Boyd and Jameson Taillon kind of had this past season make me feel a little bit encouraged about what the possibility of Zach Gallen would have been if the Cubs could have landed him. Because he is another guy who like is great at keeping the ball on the ground. I think he had a ground ball rate in the 40s or something like that. With this infield here, you know, that's taken away like a hit or two a game, you know, that it you know, could have done wonders even if you look at the raw stats and see that he's having an ERA that's approaching 5, and you know, you find a way to make that nullified when you know that you have a really good defense behind him. So and the other thing too, I'll add on Gallen is that just, you know, I mean, you could say this about any of the depth pieces that I mentioned a minute ago, but you know, there were points in the season where if you include Steele with this too, so it's a little bit of a caveat with that. But if you include Steele with it too, there were points last season where like 3 starters were on the IL at the same time. Like there was a point where Steele, Taillon, and Imanaga were all on the IL.
Yep.
At some point, you know, you need
that's going to happen.
Right. At some point, one of those guys is probably going to need some time off. So would have been a nice piece to have in that sort of spot.
Well, let me ask you this, because there's another name that's dangling out there that I've thought about, and I haven't heard his name necessarily be linked to the Cubs, but I think would be open to the possibility. Bringing back somebody who's already played in Chicago before. Lucas Giolito is still out there. Now, Lucas Giolito, in his final 7 starts of the season, changed his arm slot. So I think it moved about 24 degrees is from what I read. In those 7 starts, he pitched to a 2.11 ERA. And FIP was pretty much in line with his ERA too. So he had pitched a lot better. His strikeout rate went up. His walk rate came down. Ground ball, you know, percentage went up. Home runs came down. Now, again, very small sample size, but considering that, you know, I think the Cubs have proven that they do pretty well with some of these reclamation guys, and you know, they whether they're touting it very loudly or not, we do hear a lot about their pitch lab, right? We hear a lot about the Cubs pitch lab.
By the way, did you see like the new building they have too for the pitch lab in Arizona? That, like it like they basically took out one of the fields and built an entire like actual pitch lab on top of one of those. So yeah, they're like really going all out with it this year.
Okay, well, maybe that's another interesting name where if you're still looking for depth, because to your point, there were 3 starters on the IL at the same time last year, and I mean that's 67% of your rotation, and probably, you know, 3 of the better ones. So you know, because we didn't know what Matt Boyd was going to be last year until he started pitching really well all year consistently. But maybe that's another name that you look at, because I don't think you could ever have too much pitching, and I don't think you could ever have too much starting pitching specifically. I'm
looking at his baseball savant though right now, and it is quite a bit of blue though. It's he's red in extension, he's red in fastball run value. His fastball velo is 32nd percentile. Average exit velocity 22nd percentile. I mean, depth wise, they could use him. And I mean, look, he's still out there. So I mean, I don't know what he's willing to take. Like if it's a situation where he would take like a non-roster invite or something like that, sure.
Hmm.
Coming off the year, I'm surprised he's still out there though. I mean, guess the underlying numbers have a lot to do with it, but still, like coming off a pretty good year where he makes 26 starts, 3.41 ERA in Boston too, where like not the easiest place to pitch at. So yeah, I'd be open to it. I would think though at this point that they're pretty set, but you never know. I mean, someone could always go down. There might be a need for him at some point. So
Okay.
Never rule it out.
All right. Well, let's talk through our final roster spot battles. I know that's something that you wanted to talk about. I think one of the ones that we already know, one of the positions that's already been filled is Palencia's already been named the closer. And shout out to Jesse Rogers for bluntly asking Craig Counsell if that was going to be the starter. And I don't know if he caught Craig caught him off guard. I don't think he did because I feel Craig is pretty calculated in how he communicates.
For sure.
But he openly said Palencia is going to be the closer. I think also, I don't know if you missed it or not, Shelby Miller, a familiar face, is back with the Cubs on a 2-year deal. Now, obviously, coming off
really just a 1-year deal for 2027.
Yeah, so he basically, it's coming off Tommy John. Is it Tommy John, I think?
Yeah.
So coming off Tommy John, but was pitching really well in a relief role and has familiarity with Craig Counsell in Milwaukee. So I think that's obviously a play for 2027. But they didn't really make many other bullpen moves other than the 1 or 2 year deals that they got for some setup guys. And again, they got the depth that they could maybe push some of these guys into swing roles. But what other roster spots are you really concerned or thinking about? Because I think they've got obviously first base locked up. You've got second and short and third all locked up.
Yeah,
catcher I think is
all the starting positions are
they're all locked up, right?
I guess maybe one concern you do have, and we can get into this a little bit later, is there is a little bit of a hang up with Moises Ballesteros reporting camp because of some visa issues. I guess him and Christian Bethancourt haven't been able to get into the country yet. Hopefully that clears up soon. But yeah, I like all the starting position players are pretty well established. I think, we talked about it, like outfield set, infield set, probably the two catchers are both set with Kelly and Amaya. Rotation pretty well set. And then the bullpen, I think there's maybe room for like one opening. Because you got Palencia, Craig is committed to him as closer. I think Maton will be the setup man. Jacob Webb, Hunter Harvey, Theobar, the rest of those guys. Colin Ray has signed a big league money. He signed a 6-year deal. I can't see them, just cutting bait with that. So I think the only real opening in the bullpen is just for like the last spot in it. And I think it probably comes down to, do you want a guy that can go multiple innings and be, reliable for you? Or do you want a guy that is going to pitch you 1 inning and has like boom or bust stuff? And it's one of your favorites, Porter Hodge. I think the last bullpen spot will probably come down to between Porter Hodge or Javier Assad. This spring will probably be like, the determining factor of, which one comes to Chicago and which one is on the way to Iowa. So that's it for me as far as pitching goes. Did you have any thoughts on anyone that could potentially make it besides that, or?
No, I agree with Hodge. I mean, and I think I've always had an affinity for the guy. I think he's got the wipeout stuff of a closer. I hope he has a bounce back year. I really do. Cause you could tell after he was injured, he was not the same coming back.
For sure. Yeah. You saw it up close and personal in Minnesota last year.
Yeah.
Getting lit up.
Yeah, I did. But yeah, I mean, I think he's got the stuff that like I mean that's the stuff I love from like a back end bullpen guy. You know what I mean? He's got a fastball 98 to 100, wipeout slider, devastating change. Like those are the kind of guys that I want to see towards the end. I'm hoping he has a bounce back year. I mean, that's my hope there too, is for him to have a bounce back year. I mean, that if he does, I think that really solidifies the back end of your bullpen and it feels a lot more comfortable. Because I think if you do see Daniel Palencia falter, which you know, he had some injuries. I think he might have lost a little trust. I don't know, man. I would have liked to see him go out and get like a, you know, Edwin, what's his name?
Edwin Diaz.
Diaz. I would have loved to see him do something like that. I don't think
Right.
that's ever going to be Jed's MO. He's not going to go out and overstump a closer, but I would have loved to see that. It would have made me feel better because I think you slot Palencia down one and everybody else follows suit. And that's a really great bullpen. But, you know, that's why the Dodgers are the Dodgers and they win the way that they win. And this is why the Cubs are, we're talking about like what ifs, right?
Hey, you know what? We talked about the comparisons between this team and 2016. 2016, last piece they added in season was the closer in Chapman. You never know. There might be one out there. And that's not to say I don't believe in Palencia as a closer. I really like Palencia as a closer. I know he had his struggles last year and everything.
What do you have left to give up though in your farm system though? That's the question I have now, because like signing free agents is just money. You're not giving up, you know, capital, you know, in the form of prospects. And now at this point, you've given up your top outfield prospect. You're committed to your infield prospect being a utility guy. And your other top prospect right now is a pitcher that you probably don't want to trade. Like, I don't want to trade Jackson Wiggins. You know what I mean? Like,
no, that's a good point. I mean, you never know though. There's probably some piece that maybe we have written off that some other team will want to take a shot at and would be willing to trade their closer for, you know, if you put a package around him. Like, I think of Jordan Wicks in this example. Like, he hasn't really panned out as a starter after coming up in 2023 and performing really well. You know, 2024 and 2025 kind of in rough for him, but you know, he's still a relatively young guy. Some team out there would maybe want to take a shot on him that, you know, could see him in their future. We'll see. I mean, look, Palencia, I don't think he actually got a save in the playoffs, but he was brought in for a lot of like really important outs in the middle innings. Like, I think he was pretty routinely, like all the games that they won, I think he was like the first guy out of the bullpen after the starter left to get out of some kind of jam. At least that's what I remember about game one against the Padres. You know, you want him to come in and get those important outs. You know, stick him as closer right now. We'll see. Like I said, it's not like the 99th percentile ideal option to be the closer. We'll see how it all plays out. I think they'll be fine to start the year with him. One other thing I wanted to mention before we get to player A, player B with the roster battle. So I think the one position player thing that you could see happening is there is a guy who was brought in, actually a couple guys outfield wise who were brought in on non-roster deals. You have Chas McCormick, former Astros outfielder.
Yeah.
And you also have Dylan Carlson, former Cardinals outfielder. I am kind of rooting for Dylan Carlson. I'm rooting pretty hard for him to make it because he had a really good year a couple years ago with the Cardinals, like played a lot with the Orioles. I kind of like it. Like, he's a switch hitter. What I brought up earlier about Matt Shaw possibly taking some at bats away from, do I remember correctly, Palencia struggled getting more than 3 outs. There were a couple games like that, but you know, for the most part, he was fine as closer. like I said, really like Dylan Carlson. Really good right fielder. Should I do it right now? Does Gordo, you want it? No.
I don't know. I think YouTube might kick us off.
That's true. YouTube might kick us off. Appreciate the tip, though, Gordo. Really good right-handed hitter. He is a switch hitter. Like I said with Matt Shaw, potentially taking some playing time away from me. And Hap, again, when there's a lefty on the mound, with Hap not hitting as well as a right-handed hitter as he does as a lefty hitter. That's one option I could think of. And also, you're getting a guy who has played outfield before if you maybe don't exactly trust Matt Shaw from what you see in spring training.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We got a couple more things. We got player A, player B, and then we'll end up with flying the W's and taking the L's. So let's start off with player A, player B.
Sure.
So you got two of them for me. And I will tell you, I appreciate this setup much more than having me type these out for the screen and the banner. So
this is how we'll do it. And Baseball Reference, shout out to them because they
make it easy,
make it simple with the comparisons here. So yeah, I mean, by the way, for context, so for these two players specifically, both retired. One of them pretty recently retired. One of them long retired. One of these guys is in the Hall of Fame. One of these is not Hall of Fame eligible yet, we'll say.
Okay. All right. So you've got player A's got a 40.1 WAR versus 40.4, but pretty much dominates down the line the rest of the way. So you've got 2,700 career hits there. Impressive. 339 home runs, 1,493 RBIs, 154 stolen bases, 290 batting average. On base, obviously, player B's got a higher on base, and then slugging goes back to player A. But then wrapping it up, you got the OPS and OPS plus that goes towards player B. I feel like this is a trick question because I feel like player B might be the Hall of Famer because I'm looking at player A and that feels like surefire Hall of Fame to me there. 2,700 career hits, 339 home runs, almost 1,500 RBIs. I'm going to go with player A. I'm going to take player A over player B.
Okay. You did pick the Hall of Famer with that.
Okay.
Player A is Dave Parker from the 1970s era Pirates.
Okay. Yep.
Long, one of the best hitters who was not in the Hall of Fame and was also given a lot of shit for he got in some trouble with drugs but he eventually got inducted posthumously for what it's worth. But player B, maybe not a guy you'd think of as having a good Hall of Fame case, but player B is Anthony Rizzo.
Okay.
Yeah. That's something just to consider in maybe 4 or 5 years when his name comes on the ballot that pretty similar stats to a guy who recently got inducted.
It's an interesting case. I think, maybe you would have to, for this one specifically, would have to put the defensive stuff into it as well. Platinum glove winner, multiple Gold Glove winner at first base, how many time All-Star, World Series champion and, unofficial captain of the 2016 team.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know if for me, Anthony, and it pains me to say this, for me, Anthony Rizzo would be the Hall of Very Good more than Hall of Fame.
Probably right.
I think he's on the he's on the cusp. I think the home runs being only at 303, and again, I know this guy's got, Dave Parker's got 339, but I think the RBIs are a lot less there. And I think back then too, the batting average meant a lot more when voting into the Hall of Fame. The on base really great for Anthony Rizzo there for his career. OPS plus really strong, but I don't know, man. I feel like I don't know if I would necessarily now that I think about it, if Dave Parker's numbers would be Hall of Fame worthy to me now. Back then made total sense, but I don't know.
You know what would have really helped Rizzo in this case is so at the time that he played his last career game, let me get this right. He was 65 hit by pitches career short of being the all-time leader in hit by pitches. he has 222 for his career, which is 8th all time.
Well, that showed up in his on base.
Right. But
it shows up in his on base numbers.
Just being the all-time leader in like a stat that, could have, contract extension with the Cubs, maybe. Yeah.
No, he's
probably past that. Yeah,
he's an analyst this year.
Yeah, getting paid good money by NBC to join Joey Votto and Clayton Kershaw.
Yep. All right. You've got number 2 now. You got player A, player B. Now player B blows player A out of the water with WAR.
For sure.
Go ahead.
Both of these guys are active.
Okay.
And we'll get into it. Yeah, there is a little bit of a discrepancy in WAR, but the hitting stats pretty similar.
Okay. So WAR blows them out of the water, but you've got, very similar plate appearance, hits across the board, home runs pretty close, RBI is kind of close. Stolen base obviously goes, batting average, on base percentage goes towards player A. Slugging goes back to player B, as well as OPS plus, but OPS slightly above from player A. Now these are both, you said these are both active?
Both active players, yes. Both came up around the same time, too. I guess that's obvious by the games played because it's only 11 games to separate them.
I mean, I just think from a WAR standpoint, like there's got to be some defensive metrics I'm not seeing here that are obviously playing a big factor in this, but I'm going to go player B. I think it's so close, but I think like wins above replacement, they just blow past player A. So there's got to be some defensive, there's got to be something defensively there.
Well, so here's the thing. Player B is a 5-time Gold Glove winner. Player A is a 4-time Gold Glove winner.
Wow.
But I brought him up earlier. It's at the least valuable defensive position on the field. Player A is Ian Happ. Player B, though, is a guy that a couple of years ago you really wanted on the Cubs. Player B is Matt Chapman. Pretty similar. Okay.
I still would have liked Matt Chapman on the Cubs. I still stand by that want back then.
For sure. I'm just thinking like the hitting is basically right there. And then, like I said, defense in left field is not all that valuable, especially when compared to a position like third base. But, it's you would think the fielding discrepancy would be the difference in WAR, and yet Ian Happ is regarded as one of the higher, at least the best. I would say he's probably the best defensive left fielder in baseball.
Okay, yeah, I mean he's up there.
Yeah.
All right, let's wrap up. We got flying the W's, taking the L's to wrap it up.
For sure.
Hello, you play to win the game.
Addison is next. Doors open on the left at Addison.
I say one thing. Go. Let's go. That's a W. That's E1. That's E1. That's a W.
It is a L7 winning.
All right. I know we've got some L's to go through. I've got a couple W's, but do you want to start off with your W's?
Off the top of my head, I really only have one. Maybe I might think of one as you go on. I'll just say W for me is Sam Darnold. Just him kind of like not having the most impressive stats ever, but back-to-back years where leads a team to win 13, 14 games and now a Super Bowl champion quarterback and didn't really do all that much in the Super Bowl. He kind of finessed his way into being a Super Bowl champion, but shout out Sam Darnold. You get a W.
Okay. I like that.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, there was something that there's a couple W's that I had here. First of all, I know we haven't talked since the Super Bowl, but one of my W's goes to Bad Bunny. I don't know if you saw if you.
Oh, good call. Yep.
So, I thought it was awesome. I know there was a lot of disputing and a lot of politicizing over it or whatever, but I think all in all, I'm part Puerto Rican. I think it was really cool to see that side of the culture being represented. Showing the daily, not maybe the daily life, but I guess like some of the living that exists in Puerto Rico. I thought it was beautiful. I thought the message was beautiful. I know people were upset that nothing was in English, but if it makes people feel better, if it makes people feel better, Spanish speakers really struggle to understand Bad Bunny Spanish. So I think there are a lot of people out there that don't really understand Bad Bunny in general. But yeah, I mean, he definitely speaks more of a Puerto Rican slang Spanish more than I think most. But I thought it was awesome. I thought it was so much fun.
Hey, look, I don't speak Spanish. I don't really listen to Bad Bunny that often. It's not my preferred style of music. The show he put on was incredible. And then him shouting out every country at the end there where, Latin Americans come from, I felt was pretty important. And,
it's all of America.
You hear politicians today try to talk about like trying to unify the country. Well, I mean, he kind of made more effort to unify than, any of them ever do at this point. So
yeah, I loved it.
Good call on Bad Bunny. Yeah.
It was fun. All right. This may be unpopular. This may be even more unpopular than the opinion I just shared. Okay. I don't know if you saw this today, but this was tweeted out by Joe Shand. According to Jeff Agris of the Chicago Sun-Times, MLB broadcasts will no longer show balls, strikes, and on-screen strike zone box, as league is exercising caution to ensure teams cannot exploit the broadcast to their advantage when challenging pitches. Obviously, with ABS coming, they're going to take the little box off of the screen for us viewers when we're watching balls and strikes. I don't know about you. I'm kind of excited. I think for a lot of us, like Monday morning quarterbacks, a lot of us, fans that are bitching about what's a strike, what's not a strike. I think now we're going to get to see, like, do we really know what a strike is in that strike zone and what a true strike zone is?
That's a good point. I mean, it wasn't really until like the early 2010s that they put the box up.
Yeah.
And I've heard too before. I remember this in I think it was game 1 of the 2015 series against the Cardinals, that Phil Cuzzy was behind home plate and everyone was complaining that like he was making terrible calls against the Cubs. And someone did point out later that like the box you see on TV is not always the most accurate because it does depend on the player's heights too. You go from the knees to the letters height wise, but you go across it'll be uniform when you go across with the plate covering it. But yeah, I mean that's an interesting wrinkle to it because that maybe we do like kind of jump the gun a little bit too early, assuming that a pitch is a strike or assuming a pitch is a ball just because it doesn't go in the box, when in reality, it might actually be the case with, everything else factored in.
Yeah. All right. I know we have a shared L that we want to talk about a little bit at length.
Right.
Do you have any more else? Because I have one more that I wanted to share too.
I guess so. This one L I'll include is, maybe I should have said it earlier in the year, but just seeing the moves that the Pirates have made this year, it makes me feel bad for their former manager, Derek Shelton, who is now the manager of the Minnesota Twins. The Pirates actually made an effort to improve their team. Now he goes to a Minnesota Twins team that honestly could potentially be even worse than the White Sox in the AL Central.
Probably.
It's like that guy cannot catch a break. So, I mean, not to any fault of him, but I'm going to say an L for Derek Shelton, just for the fact that, like, if you have 2 unsuccessful terms as manager, you're probably not going to get a third. So
Yeah, maybe not.
yeah.
All right. Before we do our shared one, I actually wanted to share another L real quick. And it's not the way that it's probably going to come off, so I want to explain myself. I'm going to give an L to Chris Bryant. I know many of us love Chris Bryant. He's a hero of the 2016 Chicago Cubs. But I'm not going to give him in the L in the sense that I think he deserves an L. I think he exists with an L. I don't know if you saw this. He is going to miss the start of this year again after only playing 11 games in 2025. It was discovered that he has a chronic lumbar degenerative disc disease. Chris Bryant is never going to be the same again health-wise. He is going to be riddled with this back injury. And we all know when baseball players specifically have back injuries, that's it. They don't really come back from that. We saw with Anthony Rizzo started having the back problems. That was kind of like where he started taking a backslide in his performance. Mm-hmm. Now he had a little bit of a renaissance with the Yankees, for about maybe a year-ish. Obviously that short porch always helps left-handed hitters, but poor Chris Bryant, man. I mean, and also poor the Rockies. I mean, the Rockies ponied up a ton of money to get this guy, $182 million deal over 7 years. He has played, I want to say the equivalent to one full season. It's been 170 games total that he's played for the Colorado Rockies since he signed that deal in 2022. So over 3 or 4 years already, he's only played 170 games total. He played 11 last year. He's already going to start the DL, a 60-day IL with Colorado for this year. So, man, it is really sad to see what has happened to Chris Bryant over the course of his career.
It really has. Do you happen to follow friend of the Bums? I don't know if you're familiar with him at all. K Fids on Twitter at all. Kevin Fiddler, who he has his own Chicago sports podcast he does called Pinwheels and Ivy. Really good show too.
I've heard of that. Yep.
Yeah. He kind of went on a little bit of a rant about Chris Bryant because, so pulling back the curtain a little bit, K-Fids is in Vegas, where Chris Bryant is originally from. He was one of Chris Bryant's coaches in high school. He is in contact with him like fairly often too.
Okay.
And he went on a little bit of a rant the last show that he did, saying basically like, look, it's not for a lack of trying with KB. He wants to be out there. And it's not like he's, I don't know if he's a confirmed good guy. Fids would probably know better than that on this.
Well, he is.
But I can tell you for sure he's not a bad guy. He's not, getting in any trouble off the field. He's married with 3 kids or anything like that. Mm-hmm. He's not the kind of guy that deserves what he's been through.
No.
And, it's a shame what has happened to him. I almost kind of wish that, he's not going to step away from the money he's making, but I almost wish
he just retire.
He could do the NHL version of retirement where he stays on the books with another team, but then, just is able to live his life comfortably and everything. And, be part of all the, there was the 2016 reunion at the Cubs convention that he apparently was not able to be a part of. And, it would have been nice to have him there, but, he feels like he has a duty to, be with the Rockies and not stray away from that or anything like that. And I can respect that. But yeah, it is unfortunate what's happened to him. I wish there was a way where he could just get his money and, every now and then make an appearance at Wrigley and become the same beloved figure that, Anthony Rizzo did when he retired last year with his retirement ceremony. And, now will seemingly be able to going forward. But yeah, it's a tough scenario with him. It's really unfortunate when you consider the fact that him signing in Colorado could have potentially been a him like bouncing back and like getting back to his full potential for his career, with that being such a hitter's paradise as much as it was. And it
totally. Yeah, it definitely was a shame, but
sorry, Dorothy. I'll get that changed out next week.
Big L there. All right, let's do our combined L here, because I think we talked about this. So if everyone's seen it, obviously there is typically a slogan that goes with every year, that baseball happens, right? Like, what was it? This is Cub was one.
That's Cub, yeah. Let's
Cub.
go.
How about the White Sox? Let the kids play.
Right.
There's always a theme to a year, right? And with the Cubs coming off a playoff run that was basically halted one game before reaching the NLCS and facing the Dodgers, they came up with this. And by this, I meant
this.
Literally this.
Hashtag this.
Hashtag this is the best they could come up with. So in 2015, they said, let's go. 2016, it all starts here. 2017, that's Cub. 2018, everybody in. 2019 was the same. 2020, where stories play. 2021, Cub together. 2022, it's different here. I actually like that one.
Yes,
2023, next starts here, where, felt very similar to 2016, I suppose.
Right.
2014, you have to see it. I thought was clever with the C.
Well, but until they had to change it because a bunch of people started making jokes saying like you have to clit. Yeah. And they had to change the letter C to the actual word C.
Yeah. 2025
stuck with it for the joke, because
they should have. Yeah. Who cares? 2025, be here for it. And then 2026, I mean, this has got to be the laziest thing I can think of. Like, you might as well just said hashtag baseball.
Right. Yes.
Hashtag Cubs.
I mean, right. Yeah. Or hashtag North Side or whatever. Yeah. Like it's like, it really makes you wonder, like, some of these, they're not the most out there or anything, but they're a little bit creative,
Yeah.
I like Cub together, and it's different here, next start here, there's some thought into that. I really wonder, like, who in the marketing department would, or like how long the people in the marketing department were coming up with ideas and settled on just this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we thought it would be fun to come up with some different slogans that the Cubs could have used instead. I have a few. Praz, did you have any that you wanted to share?
One I've just been thinking of forever is just, so, you have the standard, like, Cubs hat logo with just the C. And I've been thinking, like, why not think of that as, like, converting that into, like, say, sea of blue, something like that. Because primary color for the Cubs, sea of blue. You have some ideas that are a little...
Yeah, it could be a play off the Bulls. It could be a play off the Bulls. See red, right? See blue.
Right. Yeah,
I like that.
That's exactly what I'm thinking. See red. Yep.
Yeah, this is so damn boring. Okay, so here are the slogans that I came up with. Okay. Hashtag this slogan sucks. That's the first one I came up with.
There we
go.
All
right. Here's the second one. Hashtag LeBron just retire. Which I think we all, at this point, come on, we all want this.
Hey, unless he wants to get back in the Cubs uniform like he did.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah.
The next one that I have is Iceman PCA bromance. I mean, that
perfect.
Right after the Bears playoff run, I mean, how, I was at the Blackhawks game when they brought back Jonathan Tays, obviously was with the Jets, and they did the whole, like, so I was at that game, and the crowd went nuts. I know HBIC will say otherwise. He's a goddamn liar. That crowd erupted when they saw Caleb and PCA together. But I think the Iceman PCA bromance, I mean, everybody in Chicago wants to see these two stick around for the next 10 years, right? And add in Bedard to that. We could have put in like
Matas in that too.
Yeah, right. Exactly. All right. And then finally, without, it wouldn't be a Bums in the Bleacher show if I didn't complete my L's with the following. The Bums still owe us. Hashtag the Bums still owe. It is 2 years later. I'm going to say it on every goddamn show. The Bums still owe us that bet. And they have not bet with us since because they're losers. They're losers. They lost. They still haven't paid their bet. Nobody should trust them, especially HBIC, because he lied about the Hawks game. He lied about paying up his bet. They're liars. They're all of them liars, except for Joey. I like Joey's a good dude. Joey's not a liar.
Joey's all right. Yeah, come on. There's another one you like too that you're related to, I would think.
No, he's a liar too. I still want to see him in that Cubs gear.
Well, but it was mainly only Jason and
no, I want to see it. I want to see it. I've known him 40 years. I want to see it.
Well, hey, shout out to one of the Bums, Dougie Fresh, getting the Turkish air transplant right now with the Barstool guys.
Oh yeah, that's right. Fun fact. I don't know if I've ever said this on a cast before. Johnny is my cousin. Johnny's when his daughter was born, I bought her very first baseball jersey. Mm-hmm. Had it engraved with her name, number 1. It was a Cubs one.
Let's go. Love that. Corrupting them from the start. That's awesome.
I think that's probably him paying me back, and maybe I'm not paying this bet, right? Because I've already made his daughter wear some Cubs gear, so now they don't want to pay it.
There we go.
All right. Well,
let me throw one last L in there.
Yeah.
Since you brought it up.
Yeah.
Hell to the friggin' Bulls, man. All these friggin' second round picks you're getting for actually pretty good players that you're selling off.
I'm about to give you an L.
It's okay.
You know why?
Why?
Because they are not even worth talking about, and you're talking about them.
You know what? All right, you make a good point. Yeah. Let's discuss no Jerry Reinsdorf owned teams on this podcast from here on out.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we appreciate everyone jumping into the comments. We appreciate you all. We'll obviously try to continue to work on our schedule as spring training, begins. We know that pitchers and catchers reporting exciting news. It means that we've got a few more weeks till spring. The season starts. I want to say March 26th is the Cubs home opener. I've got tons of travel in March. I can't, dude. I'll be in between Indiana, Kentucky, New Orleans.
You'll be racking up the frequent flyer miles.
Oh yeah, I'm got a trip to Guatemala. I got a packed March, but you know what? We're making time because it's Cub season. It's baseball season. Let's go.
Let's do it.
All right, y'all. Well, you all have a great night. Thanks for tuning in. And as always, fly that W. Cheers, y'all.